Welcome, curious minds. Today, we're embarking on an incredible journey, a deep dive into the fascinating world of conservation efforts, both nationally and globally.
Yeah, it's a huge topic.
Right. Our mission is to give you a shortcut to being truly well-informed, packed with surprising facts, key insights, all without, overwhelming you.
And that's crucial because conservation, well, it isn't a simple single solution topic, is it?
Not at all.
It's complex, multifaceted. It demands diverse strategies, everything from, say, formally protected areas and strict rules to grassroots community stuff and global science collaboration. This deep dive will really explore how human ingenuity and, well, natural processes can coexist, how we can shape a more sustainable future together.
Absolutely. Get ready for those aha moments, those unexpected details that'll genuinely make you look at environmental protection, maybe in a completely new way.
Right.
We're aiming for deeper understanding, not just a list of facts.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this then. When we talk about conservation in India, our sources reveal a deep and significant history, particularly with its protected areas.
That's right. India's Protected Area, or PA, network. It's seen dramatic, really foundational growth. If you look back to 1970, the National Policy for Wildlife Conservation, and then the Wildlife Protection Act in 72, that was a pivotal shift.
Right.
We moved from just, 5 national parks and 60 sanctuaries to a really robust network, 669 PAs now, covering nearly 5% of the country.
Wow, that's a big jump.
Huge jump. And it wasn't just numbers. It reflected a systematic nationwide commitment, bolstered by early things like Project Tiger, Project Elephant, the big ones.
So if we have national parks and sanctuaries, what's the fundamental difference between a wildlife sanctuary and a national park? They both sound like they protect animals.
Yeah, you've hit on a common point of confusion there. Both serve a vital protective function, absolutely, and both are declared by state governments under that foundational 1972 Act, usually for ecological or natural significance. The key differences, though, they lie in the degree of protection and sometimes their specific focus. National parks generally enjoy a greater degree of protection. For instance, livestock grazing. Strictly prohibited there. In sanctuaries, however, it's more regulated, not outright banned. Another interesting distinction. A wildlife sanctuary can be created with a specific species in mind, like the grizzled giant squirrel sanctuary in Srivilliputhur. It's a great example.
Right.
National parks, though, they're not primarily focused on just one species. And while states usually declare these, the central government can also designate PAs under certain conditions.
That clarifies it. But here's where it gets really interesting for me. How do these areas actually get established, managed on the ground, especially when people, local communities are involved?
Right, that's critical. It's a very structured, legal and administrative process, and it recognizes the human element right from the start.
How so?
Well, the declaration begins with the state government issuing an initial notification, just saying, we intend to do this. Then there's a crucial period for people to prefer claims about their rights over the land.
Okay, so people get a say.
Exactly. Only after that process, after claims are addressed, does a final notification come out, specifying the exact boundaries. And a significant point, added in 91, is the ability to include territorial waters for marine protection. That needs consultation with naval authorities, naturally.
Makes sense.
And importantly, a sanctuary or national park's boundaries. They can only be altered based on a recommendation from the National Board for Wildlife. That adds a layer of scrutiny. And alongside that, there's this vital settlement of right process. An officer, usually called a collector under the Act, investigates and determines any existing rights people have over the land.
So they figure out who lives there, who uses the land.
Precisely. Once these claims are assessed, the collector has clear options. They can exclude that land from the PA, acquire it but pay compensation, or, and this is key, in consultation with the chief wildlife warden, allow certain rights to continue.
Okay.
Plus, the state government has to make alternative arrangements for people affected, for things like fuel, fodder, essentials.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Balancing conservation with human needs is critical. And once an area is designated, I imagine there are pretty strict rules about who can actually go in.
Oh, absolutely. Entry regulations are quite stringent. Generally, only public servants on duty. People permitted to live inside by the chief wildlife warden, individuals with existing property rights, or folks just passing through on a public highway, plus their dependents. That's pretty much it.
Right.
The chief wildlife warden holds significant power here. They grant permits for specific things like investigation, photography, scientific research, tourism, or, lawful business with residents. They also have the overall control, management, maintenance of all PAs.
And the boards.
And both the National Board for Wildlife and the State Board for Wildlife play crucial advisory roles, making recommendations on establishing, managing these areas, restricting activities. It's a layered system.
Okay. Now, beyond these, let's say, traditional government-declared protected areas, India has introduced newer, more community-centric approaches. That seems like a really vital shift.
It is a profound evolution, really. The 2003 amendments to the Wildlife Act brought in conservation reserves and community reserves.
Right.
These were specifically created to give legal recognition, support for community-led wildlife protection efforts. It offers a more flexible system that actually integrates conservation with local needs. They sort of bridge the gap.
So what's the difference between them?
Good question. The distinction's important. Conservation reserves are state-owned areas, usually right next to national parks or sanctuaries, and they're managed by committee after consulting local communities. Tirupadamarother in Tamil Nadu, India's first, is a wonderful example of village community protecting nesting birds.
That's great.
Community reserves, on the other hand, are on community or private land. They're declared voluntarily by community members or individuals who agree to protect the plants, animals, even their cultural practices.
Voluntarily?
Yes, voluntarily. They're managed by a community reserve management committee, and any land use changes, they need a resolution from that committee and state government approval. Really, it's testament to local initiative.
That truly sounds like local empowerment in action. But, conservation isn't just about land, is it? Our oceans are also vital.
Indeed, they are. Coastal protected areas or marine protected areas, MPAs, they're critical. The IUCN, that's the International Union for Conservation of Nature, defines an MPA as, basically any area of intertidal or subtidal terrain, plus the water above it and associated life and features protected by law.
Okay.
These areas are hugely important for marine productivity. Think coral reefs, mangroves, seagrass beds. They're rich feeding and breeding grounds.
And how are they categorized in India?
In India, they're broadly put into three categories.
Mm-hmm.
Category 1 is entirely intertidal or subtidal reefs, mangroves. Category 2 includes islands with significant marine parts and some land. Then you have Category 3IA for sandy beaches that interact with the sea, and IA-B for evergreen forests on islands.
Right.
India currently has 33 designated national parks and wildlife sanctuaries that function as MPAs, though some are integrated, like the Gulf of Kutch Marine National Park and Sanctuary, making it 31 actual units.
Mm-hmm.
But despite their importance, MPAs currently cover less than 4.01% of India's total protected areas. So there's definitely potential for more focus there.
Definitely. And speaking of unique approaches, let's turn to the ancient tradition of sacred groves. This feels like a beautiful blend of culture and conservation.
Oh, sacred groves are truly fascinating. They're examples of indigenous conservation at its best, really.
Mm-hmm.
Patches of forest, natural vegetation, sometimes just a few trees, sometimes acres typically dedicated to local folk deities.
Right.
These areas have been protected for generations. Just due to deep-rooted religious beliefs, traditional rituals, the degree of sanctity varies a lot. In some, like with the Garo and Kazi tribes, nothing is touched, not even fallen leaves.
Wow.
Whereas others, like the Gonds in central India, might allow a collection of dead wood, but live trees are never cut.
And they're classified in different ways.
Broadly, yes. You have traditional sacred groves where a village deity resides, temple groves, created around a temple, and groves around burial or cremation grounds.
So what's their ecological significance beyond the cultural value? Because that sounds immense already.
It is immense. Ecologically, they are crucial. They act as repositories of floral and faunal diversity. Often, they're the last refuge for endemic species in a region, like little biodiversity islands.
Mm-hmm.
They also play a vital role in recharging aquifers. They're often associated with ponds or springs. And the dense vegetation helps soil conservation. You find them abundantly along the Western Ghats, places like Kerala, Karnataka.
But they're under threat now.
Sadly, yes. Significant threats. The disappearance of traditional belief systems, which were the foundation of their protection, that's a major issue. Rapid urbanization, roads, dams, commercial forestry, they destroy or shrink these groves.
Development pressures
Exactly. Even Sanskritization, where nature worship shifts to more formal temple worship, can subtly change their protective status. Plus, invasion by exotic weeds like lantana and pressures from livestock and fuelwood collection. It all takes a toll on these unique natural sanctuaries.
That's a poignant reminder. Okay, finally, in this foundational segment, let's look at what items are actually prohibited for export. Flora and fauna. This gets right to the heart of regulating wildlife trade.
You're right. These prohibitions are a key tool against illegal wildlife trade. Generally, you just can't get an export license for these things.
Like what?
Well, key examples include all wild animals, their products, derivatives, with very narrow exceptions for, say, scientific research under the Wildlife Act. Prohibited meats include beef from cows, oxen, calves, plus offal, and fresh or frozen buffalo meat.
Peacock tail feathers and their handicrafts are also banned for export. Other things. Shavings and manufactured articles from shed antlers of chital and sambar deer, seashells, and various wood products, fuel wood, charcoal, specific forms of sandalwood, red sanders wood, and various types of wood pulp.
So quite a diverse list.
It seems diverse, but it's all part of a concerted effort, trying to dismantle the economic incentives that fuel the illegal trade, hitting the demand for endangered species and their parts.
That gives us a really solid understanding of India's domestic conservation framework. Now, let's step back a bit. Look at the bigger global picture, the frameworks connecting conservation efforts worldwide.
Right. That brings us to UNESCO's Man and Biosphere Program, MA for short, launched back in the early 1970s.
MA.
It's an intergovernmental scientific program aiming to improve the relationship between people and their environment globally.
Yeah.
What makes it powerful is its interdisciplinary nature. It combines natural and social sciences, economics, education, all to tackle biodiversity loss across ecological, social, economic dimensions, with the goal of sustainable development. It's holistic.
Okay, so MB sounds like this huge overarching umbrella, and the biosphere reserves, like they're a key tangible part of that, right?
No, precisely. Biosphere reserves, BRs, are a cornerstone of MB. They got their international designation from UNESCO concept, refined in 74, network launched in 76.
Okay.
They're designed as representative natural and cultural landscapes, big areas, terrestrial, coastal, marine, or a mix. Essentially, they are living examples of how human beings and nature can coexist, promoting sustainable development through local efforts and sound science.
And what makes them unique, their features?
Well, they are protected areas where people are seen as an integral component, not just an external factor. Together, they form a worldwide network for sharing scientific information. They also include significant examples of global biomes and represent diverse ecological situations, natural biomes, areas with unique biodiversity, harmonious traditional landscapes, even degraded ecosystems that could be restored.
So beyond just protecting an area, what exactly are the core functions? What are biosphere reserves doing?
Good question. They have three main interconnected functions. First, conservation. That means conserving landscapes, ecosystems, species, genetic variations. Also encouraging traditional resource use, understanding ecosystem function, monitoring changes.
Okay, conservation first.
Second is development, promoting economic development locally that's culturally, socially, and ecologically sustainable. It's about livelihoods alongside protection.
Right.
And third is logistics support, providing support for research, monitoring, education, information exchange related to conservation and development, often site-specific training, fostering community spirit.
And who benefits?
The beauty is both local people and the ecological resources are direct beneficiaries, and the world community, indirect beneficiaries, gaining from preserved biodiversity and knowledge. India, for its part, aims to designate at least one BR in each of its biogeographic provinces.
And India's National Biosphere Reserve Program from 1986 that reinforces these existing protected areas, building on those MA principles?
Absolutely. Its objectives are far-reaching. Conserve diversity, safeguard genetic diversity, provide areas for research and monitoring, offer education and training facilities, and crucially, ensure sustainable resource use for local economic well-being, really integrating the biological, socioeconomic, and cultural sides.
And there are specific criteria for choosing them.
Yes, laid down in 1979. Primary criteria include having an effectively protected, minimally disturbed core area, typical of a biogeographical unit, large enough for viable populations. Secondary criteria look for things like rare or endangered species, diverse soil and climate conditions, indigenous biota, and potential for preserving traditional ways of life.
This sounds very structured. How are they designed? Physically, on the ground, What do these zones look like?
They're designed with 3 interrelated zones. Allows for different activities, a gradient of human interaction. First, the core zone, kept absolutely undisturbed, legally protected, provides habitat, maybe centers of endemism. Only non-destructive research allowed here.
Okay. The core is strict.
Very strict. Surrounding this is the buffer zone. Its uses are managed specifically to protect the core. Allows limited recreation, tourism, fishing, grazing. Research and education are encouraged here.
Right.
Finally, the transition zone, the outermost part, often not strictly marked out, it's a zone of cooperation, where conservation knowledge and management skills are applied more broadly. Includes settlements, farms, managed forests, other economic uses typical of the region, allowing for sustainable practices. But the more manipulative management happens mainly in the buffer and transition zones.
So how are these biosphere reserves different from the national parks and wildlife sanctuaries we talked about earlier? Seems like overlapping goals, but different approaches.
That's a great distinction to make. They often get confused. BRs aren't meant to replace existing PAs. They widen the scope of conventional protection, strengthen the whole network. An existing park could become part of a BR without changing its legal status.
Okay.
The key difference. BRs emphasize conserving overall biodiversity of landscapes, not just specific flagship species, allowing natural evolution to continue. They encompass landscapes, habitats, species, and crucially, they integrate development activities aimed to resolve conflicts.
More holistic.
Exactly. Broader stakeholder participation too, especially local people. Focus on sustainable development, comprehensive research, monitoring, and BRs get international recognition via UNESCO's MAB program with countries' consent. The management stays with the state or UT with central government help.
This seems really collaborative, especially with the World Network of Biosphere Reserves. How does that international cooperation work?
It's a powerful tool for global learning. The World Network of Biosphere Reserves, WMBR, set up in 1977, facilitates cooperation among BRs globally. Reserves join via MEB's Coordinating Council, but importantly, they remain under their country's sovereignty. Participation is voluntary.
Right.
This network, now over 700 reserves in more than 120 countries, promotes North-South and South-South collaboration, sharing knowledge, experiences, building capacity, collective problem-solving on a global scale.
Now, shift gears now to areas of critical importance due to unique biodiversity under intense threat, biodiversity hotspots. This concept really drives home the urgency.
It really does. The concept came from Norman Myers back in 1988, and it's quite specific. To qualify, a region needs to meet 2 strict criteria.
What are they?
First, it must have at least 1,500 species of vascular plants as endemics. That's over 0.5% of the world's total. Plants found nowhere else.
Okay, high endemism.
Exactly. And second, it must have lost at least 70% of its original habitat.
70%. So these are truly remarkable universes of extraordinary life, struggling to survive in rapidly shrinking ecosystems. The definition itself emphasizes fragility.
Precisely. Their global significance is immense. Over 50% of the world's plant species and 42% of all terrestrial vertebrate species are endemic to these 35 biodiversity hotspots.
Yeah.
Lose these areas, you lose a huge chunk of global biodiversity.
Which ones are considered the hottest of the hotspots, and where does India fit in this critical map?
Well, the 8 hottest, based on factors like endemic plants, vertebrates, species-to-area ratios, remaining vegetation, include places like Madagascar, the Philippines, Sundaland, Brazil's Atlantic forest, the Caribbean, Indo-Burma, Western Ghats, Sri Lanka, and parts of East Africa.
And in India?
India is home to 4 of these vital biodiversity hotspots. The Himalayas, Indo-Burma, the Western Ghats in Sri Lanka, and Sundaland.
Wow, 4.
Yes. And just to give an example of the pressure, the Western Ghats and Sri Lanka hotspot originally covered about 182,500 square kilometers. Now, only about 6.8% is left in pristine condition due to immense population pressure. Yet, it has incredibly diverse vegetation, thanks to rainfall patterns and complex geography.
And briefly, what about biodiversity cold spots? Sounds like the opposite, but still important.
They are lesser known, but yes, important. Cold spots are areas with relatively low biological diversity overall, but crucially, high rates of habitat loss.
So why protect them?
Their conservation importance comes because they might be the only place a particular rare species is found. Or they represent unique physical environments, extreme temperatures, unusual chemistry that are biologically interesting and warrant protection, even without high species numbers.
Okay, makes sense. From specific biological value to cultural and natural gems recognized globally, let's introduce World Heritage Sites, UNESCO again. These seem to bridge human history and natural beauty.
They absolutely do. World Heritage Sites are areas or objects on the UNESCO World Heritage List, designated as having outstanding universal value under the 1972 Convention.
Right.
This convention provides a framework for international cooperation in preserving cultural treasures and natural areas worldwide. What's really unique is its ability to recognize landscapes that combine both cultural and natural values, where biology and geography have evolved alongside human activity, showing a harmonious relationship. The first list came out in 1978.
They revamped the criteria a while back, didn't they? How do sites get selected now?
They did. In 2005, they moved to a single set of 10 criteria. A nominated site has to show outstanding universal value and meet at least one of these 10.
Examples.
Well, a site could represent a masterpiece of human creative genius, or contain superlative natural phenomena, exceptional natural beauty. Crucially for conservation, a site could also qualify if it contains the most important natural habitats for in situ conservation of biodiversity, including threatened species.
And UNESCO helps protect them.
Yes. UNESCO provides funding for preservation and maintains a list of World Heritage in danger for sites facing severe threats, like pollution. Plus, the designation often promotes responsible tourism, which can help local economies.
And globally, it's not just designated sites, it's about raising awareness, isn't it?
Absolutely. Global awareness initiatives are fundamental. The UN declared 2010 the International Year of Biodiversity, and May 22nd is the International Day for Biological Diversity. Both UN initiatives, crucial for increasing understanding, awareness of biodiversity issues worldwide. May 22nd marks the adoption of the Convention on Biological Diversity text back in '92. It's about making biodiversity a household concept.
That's a great segue. Let's dive into some of India's most ambitious, targeted conservation efforts, focusing on specific key species. And to kick us off, here's a fun fact. Did you know no two tigers have exactly the same pattern of stripes?
That's true, like human fingerprints.
Exactly. And that fact is actually vital to how we track them, isn't it?
It is indeed key to their conservation. Leads us right to Project Tiger, launched way back in 1973, a centrally sponsored scheme.
And the context was pretty grim.
Oh, dire. The Indian tiger population had plummeted from an estimated 40,000 in 1900 down to maybe 1,800 by 1972. Devastating.
Wow.
So Project Tiger's objectives are twofold. One, ensure the maintenance of available tiger populations for their scientific, economic, aesthetic, cultural, ecological value.
Oh.
Two, preserve areas of biological importance as national heritage. And crucially, it also aims to harmonize the rights of tribal people living in and around these reserves.
To balance again.
Always. And the Bengal tiger, by the way, national animal of India and Bangladesh, classified as endangered globally.
So what's the actual structure of these tiger reserves? How are they set up?
Tiger reserves are specific areas notified just for tiger protection under the project. Started with only 9, but now it's robustly increased to, I think, 54 across 18 states now.
That's significant growth.
Huge growth. Each reserve typically has a core zone. That's the critical tiger habitat. Kept inviolate, strictly protected, but without affecting the rights of scheduled tribes or other forest dwellers living there.
Okay.
Then there's a buffer zone, peripheral area, designed to promote coexistence between wildlife and human activity,
Right.
recognizing livelihood rights.
Right.
And crucially, any boundary changes or denotification requires recommendations from the National Tiger Conservation Authority and approval from the National Board for Wildlife. Ensures rigorous oversight.
And what about the National Tiger Conservation Authority itself, the NTCA? What power does it have?
The NTCA is key, constituted as a statutory authority by the 2006 Amendment Act, specifically to aid tiger conservation. It has significant powers and functions, kind of the backbone of the project.
Like what sort of powers?
Approving tiger conservation plans from states, evaluating disallowing ecologically unsustainable land uses like mining within reserves, setting tourism standards, providing vital info on protection measures, population estimates, preventing diversion of reserves or corridors for bad uses. Plus supporting eco-development, people's participation, providing critical scientific, IT, legal support, and capacity-building programs for reserve staff. It's a comprehensive oversight body.
How do they actually count these elusive animals? That's the tiger census, right? To track progress.
That's right, the tiger census or estimation process, done meticulously every 4 years since 2006. In the past, the pugmark census technique was big identifying tigers by paw prints. Now it's more used as an index of presence.
So what are the main methods now?
Modern methods, like camera trapping, have revolutionized it. Allows individual tigers to be identified by their unique stripe patterns from photos, and DNA fingerprinting using DNA from scats is another advanced technique for ID.
Right, I've heard about camera traps.
The 2010 National Tiger Assessment pioneered a robust three-phase procedure, really enhanced accuracy. Phase 1, intensive field data collection by trained staff. Phase 2, detailed habitat analysis using satellite data. Phase 3, high-density camera trapping as the primary method, with broader landscape estimates using extra info like tiger signs, prey, habitat conditions.
And it keeps evolving.
Yes. Phase 4 expanded this from late 2011 to intensive annual monitoring at the reserve level, refining techniques using high-density cameras, distance sampling for prey monitoring, innovations like partnering with civil society, involving local communities, genetic analysis, pioneering estimation in tough spots like the Sundarbans. It's really elevated the science.
And the results, what do the numbers show?
The progress has been remarkable. From about 1,411 tigers in 2006 up to 1,706 in 2010, then 2,967 in 2018. The latest 2022 census estimated 3,167, a significant increase.
That's fantastic.
Madhya Pradesh consistently reports the highest numbers. Though some states initially saw declines, they're being addressed. India remains firmly committed to that St. Petersburg Declaration goal, doubling the tiger population by 2022. And India actually achieved that milestone ahead of schedule. A real success story.
That's incredible. And this isn't just an internal effort, is it? There's vital international cooperation given tigers cross borders.
Indeed, vital. India has an OU with Nepal on controlling transboundary illegal trade, a protocol with China on tiger conservation, processes ongoing for similar deals with Bangladesh, Bhutan, Myanmar,
Right.
and the Global Tiger Forum brings tiger range countries together, addresses international issues. The New Delhi Resolution on Tiger Conservation, adopted at the Third Asian Ministerial Conference, featured key strategies, the 3 R's: restoration, reintroduction, rehabilitation, plus habitat improvement, anti-poaching, more local participation, a truly global commitment.
Okay, from tigers, let's turn to another iconic big cat facing unique challenges, the Asiatic lion. Before we talk Project Lion, here's an interesting tidbit. Did you know Rajasthan actually launched Project Leopard? First state to do so, aiming to conserve leopards by improving their prey base and mitigating conflict.
That's interesting about Project Leopard. It shows the focus widening. But yes, Project Lion addresses the Asiatic lion, found mainly in Gujarat's Gir forest, their last natural stronghold.
And their numbers are up.
Yes, healthy growth. From 523 in 2015 to 674 in 2020. But there are concerns. Low genetic diversity in that single Gir population makes them vulnerable to epidemics. Scenarios about relocating some lions started way back in 1995.
Relocation?
Yes. Led to a 2013 Supreme Court order for relocation to Kunalpalpur Wildlife Sanctuary. And genetic studies confirm the limited diversity. Now, under Project Lion, 6 new sites have been identified for potential relocation.
So spreading the risk.
Exactly. Plus, the central government ran the Asiatic Lion Conservation Project from 2018-21, targeting this critically endangered species with a species conservation over a large landscape approach, dividing the greater Gir region into management zones, promoting healthier, more resilient populations.
From big cats to the biggest land mammals, elephants. Project Elephant must be tackling huge threats to their habitats and survival.
Oh, absolutely. Project Elephant launched 92, centrally sponsored scheme. It's critical. Objectives are clear. Protect elephants, their habitats, crucial corridors, address the escalating human-animal conflict, and ensure the welfare of domesticated elephants, too.
What are the main threats they face?
The severe habitat loss and fragmentation, often from linear development roads, railways, mining, electric fences cutting across their paths, and persistent poaching for ivory tusks, though maybe less than before, it's still a threat.
Corridors seem key.
Hugely important. There are 88 identified elephant corridors in India, but the challenge, 90% of them are on land shared with human settlements. Needs very careful management, community engagement.
So how are they mitigating these significant threats? It sounds like a monumental task.
It is. Mitigation efforts include integrating corridors with ecologically sensitive areas, securing them through voluntary community relocation sometimes, creating refuges. Internationally, the MIKE program monitoring illegal killing of elephants from sites is crucial, provides data on poaching levels.
Right.
And nationally, the Hathi Mir Sathi campaign, launched in 2011, was significant. The ministry designated the elephant a national heritage animal. That campaign, plus Gaju, aims to raise awareness. Remember, the Asian elephant is threatened habitat degradation, conflict, poaching. India holds over half the wild population, maybe 25,000 or so.
From the largest mammals to a critical, often overlooked part of the ecosystem, vultures. I understand they faced a very specific, devastating threat. Before we get into Project Vulture, another quick fact. The term blind as a bat isn't really accurate. Bats actually have perfectly good eyes for daylight. They just do most hunting at night.
Good one about bats. But yes, vultures. India has 9 species, and their populations faced a catastrophic decline, almost wiped out in places, primarily due to a veterinary drug, diclofenac, an anti-inflammatory.
How did that affect them?
Vultures feeding on livestock carcasses treated with diclofenac suffered kidney failure. It was deadly. Led to a swift response, a ban on diclofenac for veterinary use in 2006, and vigorous promotion of meloxicam, a safer alternative.
So what solutions are being implemented now to save these vital scavengers? Their ecological role is huge.
Irreplaceable, yes. Several solutions are in play. One is creating vulture safety zones. These are large areas, 2,000 square kilometers, where diclofenac-free carcasses are provided. Safe feeding zones. Locations include Jim Corbett, Dudai, areas near the Indo-Nepal border. It's a cross-border issue.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Vulture restaurant.
You also have innovative things like vulture restaurants in Maharashtra and Punjab, providing controlled, safe food. Plus, breeding centers are crucial. Places like Pinjore, Buxa, Bhopal, Hyderabad. A program by the Ministry and the Bombay Natural History Society aims to release 30 young vultures annually.
And international help.
Yes, robust international cooperation through the SV Consortium, saving Asia's vultures from extinction.
Another success story seems to be the greater one-horned rhino. India plays a huge role in their global population, right? And speaking of rhinos, did you know about the woolly rhino? Probably the most famous extinct rhino species.
The woolly rhino, yes. But focusing on the living ones, you're right. About 75% of the global greater one-horned rhino population is now in India. A real testament to dedicated conservation.
What's been done?
The ministry formulated a national conservation strategy back in 2010. And in 2019, the New Delhi Declaration saw rhino range states commit to more action. Activities include tough anti-poaching, continuous monitoring, community conservation, and crucially, translocations.
Moving them to new areas.
Exactly. That's the backbone of the Indian Rhino Vision 2020 program, populating new habitats to create more resilient, geographically spread populations. Manas National Park was the first site for this. Started releasing them in 2008, aiming for 100 there. The overall vision was to boost Assam's population from around 2,000 to 3,000 by 2020. Significant progress made.
From the plains to the high, cold mountains, Project Snow Leopard must deal with unique challenges in that harsh environment.
It certainly does. Project Snow Leopard launched 2009, an initiative specifically for strengthening wildlife conservation in the Himalayan high altitudes.
What's the focus?
Promoting a knowledge-based adaptive conservation framework. Actively involving local communities, absolutely vital in those remote areas. It covers the Himalayan high altitudes across India, J&K, Himachal, Uttarakhand, Sikkim, Arunachal, a vast habitat, maybe 129,000 square kilometers, home to unique wildlife, other threatened species like Tibetan argali, blue sheep, besides the snow leopard itself.
International links.
Yes, India upholds commitments under CMS, SEATS. Participates in initiatives like the Snow Leopard Population Assessment of India Protocol and the Global Snow Leopard and Ecosystem Protection Program, a high-level intergovernmental alliance.
From the highest peaks to the ocean depths, let's touch on the Sea Turtle Project. Olive ridleys are particularly important for India's coasts, I know. And another animal fact, hippos. Found in Africa, the name means river horse, often shortened to hippo.
River horse, yes. Sea turtles are vital too. Especially olive ridleys, a huge proportion migrate to Indian coastal waters for nesting. Odisha is a major site.
So there's a project.
Yes, launched in 1999. Ministry Wildlife Institute of India, UNDP collaboration. Focused on 10 coastal states, special emphasis on Odisha. Uses advanced techniques like satellite telemetry to track migratory routes crucial for protecting them on their journeys, and provides specialized training locally.
India also put significant effort into its crocodile conservation project.
Yes, that was launched after a big population decline. Been quite successful. Bred and released over 7,000 crocs. Uses captive breeding, rear and release techniques, raising young ones safely before putting them back. Objectives: protect remaining wild populations, quickly rebuild natural populations, restore a key predator.
And a more localized but vital effort, Project Hengel.
Project Hengel focuses on the Kashmir stag, or Hengel, a subspecies of Asian red deer native to northern India. It's the state animal of Jammu and Kashmir.
How are they doing?
Population has fluctuated, but dedicated conservation efforts led to an increase from critical lows in the 70s. Reported 340 individuals by 1980. Shows focused conservation can work, even for localized species.
Finally, Project Dolphin. From mountains to rivers and seas, it seems every ecosystem gets attention.
That's the goal. Dolphins inhabit diverse aquatic ecosystems. 15 species reported in Indian waters. The Ganges River dolphin, that's India's national aquatic animal, listed in Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Act, highest protection.
What threatens them?
Multiple things. River water pollution, entanglement in fishing nets, poaching, and the impact of dams, barrages fragmenting their habitats.
But what's being done?
A comprehensive conservation action plan ran from 2010-2020, and the National Mission for Clean Ganga from 2016 also helps their long-term survival by improving river health, population estimated around 2,000. Plus, the ministry has a 10-year project specifically for dolphins conserving them, strengthening aquatic biodiversity, creating employment, attracting dolphin-related tourism, highlighting their value beyond just ecology.
Okay, beyond these species-specific projects, there are broader cross-cutting strategies, crucial for effective conservation, tackling wider challenges.
Indeed. Government measures to prevent wild animals entering human habitats, for example. That includes financial help to states via schemes like Integrated Development of Wildlife Habitats, Project Tiger, Project Elephant, what else? Supporting construction of physical barriers, walls, solar-powered electric fences, developing infrastructure for immobilizing, safely relocating problem animals, and importantly, public awareness programs, fostering coexistence, not just conflict management.
A critical global challenge is stopping illegal wildlife trade. It undermines so much conservation. And did you know, technically, there are no parrots native to India. The colorful birds we see are actually parakeets.
Ah, parakeets, right. And yes, tackling illegal wildlife trade is paramount. It's complex, international. India adopted SALWIN, the South Asia Wildlife Enforcement Network, back in 2008.
What does SALWIN do?
It's a formal regional network, helps control transboundary wildlife crime, better communication, coordination, capacity building, cooperation among South Asian countries, creating a unified front against wildlife criminals.
Looking ahead, technology is playing an increasingly vital role. Tell us about DNA barcoding and this ambitious bioscan initiative.
Technology is truly transformative here. DNA barcoding, powerful methodology, developed with the Zoological Survey of India and IBEAL International Barcode of Life, aims for rapid, accurate species ID using standardized gene regions, like a genetic fingerprint for each species.
And bioscan.
Building on that, Bioscan, launched 2019, aims to complete 500,000 species identifications by 2026. The bigger vision, the Planetary Biodiversity Mission, establishing a global biosurveillance program, a comprehensive library of life by cataloging all multicellular species by 2045.
Wow, cataloging all life.
An incredible undertaking, mapping life on Earth.
And finally, it all comes back to raising global understanding, doesn't it? Because ultimately, conservation hinges on collective awareness and action.
Absolutely. That UN International Year of Biodiversity in 2010, the International Day for Biological Diversity on May 22nd, they're crucial, reminding us all of our connection to the natural world. In fact, on a fascinating note, did you know dendrochronology is the science of calculating a tree's age by its rings?
I did know that one.
Ah, okay. But did you know, for every 5% of tree cover added to a community, stormwater runoff is reduced by about 2%.
No, I didn't know that.
See, it just shows how interconnected everything in nature really is. Trees, water, communities.
Wow, what an incredible journey we've had through the world of conservation. We've seen how India and the global community are working to protect everything from vast landscapes to individual species, blending, traditional wisdom with cutting-edge science.
Yeah, what's really fascinating here is the layered, interconnected approach. From formal protected areas to community efforts, ambitious species projects to global science networks.
Right.
It's all about finding innovative ways for human beings and nature to coexist, respecting each other's needs, realizing our fates are, well, intrinsically linked.
And it's so clear that conservation isn't just about protecting animals, is it? It's about entire ecosystems, preserving unique cultures, and ultimately securing a sustainable future for all of us.
This deep dive has really shown us the immense scale of these efforts, the dedication involved, how complex yet vital this work is. Thinking about the constant pressures, development, climate change, and all the diverse strategies we've explored today. What single aspect of conservation do you, listening out there, think is the most vital for ensuring a resilient future for our planet? Something to ponder.
A great question to leave us with. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We really encourage you to continue exploring these vital topics and maybe find your own answers to that very question.